Main screen turn on. Hello my dear viewer, I'm Yidoger and this is my co-commentator Nemesis. E3 has passed a couple of weeks ago and I could not resist giving my opinion on it. As per usual for the last couple of Discourse display videos, I'm showing footage from Super Mario Advance 3 Yoshi's Island, specifically from where I left off in my own playthrough of the game. It's pretty bad. I haven't had an actual Let's Play episode for 4 videos in a row now, but I guess that's just the way the cookie crumbles. This game needs to get completed at some point anyway, so the more game I get through, the better. I had been thinking about making a separate DD video for each press conference and things shown at E3 related to those, but that would just take too much time in both recording and editing different game footage. So I decided to just pick what my highlights were and talk about those in one video. I will mention what games I would have used footage from if I had been able to do what I actually wanted to, just for fun. I also have to mention that I did not have the time to watch the actual press conferences, regretfully, so most of my information comes from websites that made summaries and watched a few trailers from there. Starting off with Oculus VR, who hosted a conference, and I would not have watched this one. I feel like the Oculus Rift, or just any virtual reality in general, will be nice for a few specific types of games, like the Kinect was fun for dancing and minigame compilations for example, and developers will not know how to properly combine the technology with interesting gameplay. Much like pretty much every developer ever who made games for the Wii. Still, Insomnia Games is apparently developing the first game for the system, called Edge of Nowhere, which is pretty good advertisement since their games are typically very solid. Bethesda had very little I was interested in. Dishonored is getting a sequel, but I still need to play the original first. The Elder Scrolls Legends is a card game they're making based on the TES universe, probably as a reaction to the major success of Hearthstone, but I doubt it'll enjoy the same kind of fame. I don't really play Bethesda games, so I don't have a lot of options when it comes to footage that I could have shown, had this been a separate video, but I do have a Fallout compilation disc for PC lying around, so I suppose I could have played some of the first game in that series. Microsoft did have some stuff that actually really excited me though. First and foremost, Xbox One will have backwards compatibility with 360 games. Of the 3 current gen consoles, I only own a Wii U and do not have any interest in the other 2, mainly because I can't play my older games on them and I don't have the room for another console lying around. It's a bit of a shame because there are a few games exclusively on them that I would like to play, but that's just how it is. Still, when hearing about this, I instantly started thinking about upgrading my 360 at some point. There are a few downsides though. It won't support Kinect games, not even over the 2.0 that used to come with the One. I made fun of it earlier, but I do own a number of Kinect games that are fun in parties, and it would be a bummer if I'd have to grab the 360 and a spherical from the attic to play these. It's also not guaranteed that every game will be playable, as companies need to give permission or perhaps renew licenses for it to happen. And specifically the latter might not work if it's expired. If I do end up upgrading my 360 to a One, I'll be sure to buy the announced Rare Replay, which compiles 30 old Rare and Ultimate Play the Game games that come from the 360 all the way back to the ZX Spectrum. I don't even know most of the old ones, which is what I'd mostly buy it for, to be honest. Most of the Nintendo 64 and newer ones are games that I would rather play on that system, to be honest. But at the same time, it's good to have another excuse to play the 2 Banjo games again. Rare is also releasing Sea of Thieves, which is related to the original SNES prototype of Banjo-Kazooie called Project Dream. It's even stated to have certain characters from said prototype in it, like Captain Blackeye, who had a cameo in Banjo-Tooie that I never understood until doing this research just now. Gears of War 4 is also announced. I really liked the first one for its single-player / co-op campaign, and loved the second for both that and its multiplayer, but severely disliked the third and haven't even bothered with playing Judgment, so I can't be really excited for this. They're also remaking the original for Xbox One, which is just plain stupid. What's the use in making an HD port of a game which is already HD? It makes no sense, especially with the backwards compatibility announced. This does seem to be a trend nowadays though, but not one I can really support. There's a lot of choices for games I could have played my commentary over for this one. There's the first Halo, since they also announced the 5th entry in the main series for that one, but I never played any of the games in the franchise, so that might have been a bit awkward. There's Gears 1 multiplayer, or even the second one for that matter, since I still need some achievements in there. And I love ninjaing 2 fruits in 1 swipe, but I think that footage would be relatively boring. So I don't know, maybe some Kinect stuff since it'll be unplayable, or something from Rare to celebrate their replay game. Alright, EA had a new Mass Effect game. I liked the first one, but haven't had a chance to play either of its sequels. There's also a second part to Mirror's Edge. Again, the first one is a game I'd like to have played, but never got to. And it's EA, so they also had a huge amount of updated sport games that will probably be exactly the same as their predecessors. I'd probably have recorded myself kicking a ball against the wall for footage here. The Dutch are awesome at soccer like that. Ubisoft. There's awesome news in that a sequel was announced to the highly regarded South Park: The Stick of Truth that was released last year. It's a game I haven't played, but have heard such great things about that for this one I actually got excited myself. Other than that, a new Assassin's Creed. Obviously. Haven't played a game in that series since AC3, and with it having become a yearly franchise, even without including the spin-offs, I can't really care. Like Gears of War, I'd probably have played some Brotherhood multiplayer for the last achievements I need there, but I'd most likely have combined this with EA and Bethesda and worked out something to show alongside my babblings from there. Sony had a very solid lineup, but 3 games stood out beyond everything else. They started with The Last Guardian, a game that pretty much everyone thought was just silently cancelled. I guess it's as much of a spiritual successor to Shadow of the Colossus as that game was to Ico. Second big one, Final Fantasy VII Remake. To be honest, I get that everybody and their grandmas are waiting for this, but I don't feel like a classic like this needs a remake. And the third announcement in Sony's E3 2015 Holy Trinity, Shenmue 3. Or at least a crowdfunder was announced that reached its $2 million target in under 8 hours after the announcement. I don't see why Sony didn't just finance the game themselves. It's obvious it would have sold like crazy, but if I may be honest, I would have wished for Nintendo to get that honor. They need more high status exclusive titles like that. Really, any of the games related to those I mentioned here would have made for good footage to show. Going back to Nintendo, I think they made the mistake to show their new Smash 4 content and Earthbound Beginnings during their Nintendo World Championships 2015 instead of during their conference. As a bit of a tie-in to the game I'm playing here, Yoshi's Woolly World, which I did not really pay that much attention to at first, had some gameplay footage shown, and the game looks and sounds absolutely brilliant and very atmospheric. Other games that were announced. Star Fox Zero, for starters. Now, Lylat Wars, or Star Fox 64 as it is known on the other side of the ocean, is one of my favorite games of all time. It in itself was already a reboot of the SNES game, and Zero appears to be a reboot again. Shame, cause I personally actually would have liked to see them continue on from Star Fox Commands' most likely endings. At any rate, it seems to incorporate elements from both the SNES and N64 games, but also has a lot of stuff in it that would have been included in the as good as finished but never released Star Fox 2, which would have been a direct sequel to the first game. I'm not sure how I feel about this one yet. It feels like an enhanced remake of a game that didn't need it at all. I'd like to get my hands on it before I pass judgment, since I hold one of this franchise's games so dearly to my heart. There have been 2 amiibo characters announced for the new Skylanders game. Bowser and Donkey Kong will have new figures, which will also be compatible with the Superchargers game of the franchise. You know, it's a crossover that's so obvious that I could have never come up with this myself. I don't play Skylanders for the same reason I don't buy amiibos. I'm afraid I'll gotta catch them all if I started with it. But this is pretty awesome and kinda makes me regret not getting into all the figurine business. The Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes was announced, and it features cooperative multiplayer Zelda gameplay, much like Four Swords and Four Swords Adventures, only with 3 links instead of 4. Another new-ish Zelda game is announced in Hyrule Warrior Legends, a 3DS port of the Wii U game. It'll have some Wind Waker content added that can apparently be transferred over to its console Big Brother, but I don't know why this game needs to exist, to be honest. What I am really looking forward to, though, is Mario & Luigi Paper Jam, a crossover between, as the name might imply, the Mario & Luigi and Paper Mario series. I love both of these, and I can't wait to see what craziness they'll come up for with this one. I do have to admit that I don't really like the way the clashing graphical styles look, though. And also, this of course needs to be mentioned, Metroid Prime Federation Force. A Metroid Prime Hunters type of first-person shooter where you play as a galactic Federation Marines, and where Samus is nowhere to be seen. And it has the most distasteful chibi-fied graphics of the awesome Prime series' character designs. It also has a second mode called Metroid Prime Blast Ball, where you play different sports inspired by the Metroid Prime gameplay, which looks as uninteresting as Federation looks boring. It's telling that 90% of this trailer's YouTube thumbs are aimed down, and that there's actually a petition to not release this game. I feel bad for those involved in this development. So, finishing it off with Square Enix, a new Nier game is announced, which I doubt anyone saw coming, as I didn't think the first game sold that great or was that well received. The Disney crossover game gets its long-awaited 8th installment in Kingdom Hearts 3 announced, Star Ocean will get another title added to the franchise, and World of Final Fantasy was the only game announced for the Vita, and even then it will also be released for the PS4. Not sure what to think of it. From what I can tell by what little was shown, it'll be pretty lackluster and draw its sales mainly from having staple characters from the other installments in it. Though I can't tell if they'll actually be playable or just some sort of summons, and the super chibi-fied designs don't really work for me either. I will say I find it odd that they didn't announce the FF7 remake here themselves though. Sony must have given them a huge pot of gold for that honor. For this conference I would have probably talked over Final Fantasy V Advance, since I still need to complete that game. And that's basically it for my high and low points. I'll say this though, it was one of the more spectacular E3s in a few years, and I hope the following years they'll be able to keep it on this track. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, keep track of my channel. I try to upload a new video every Friday. Alternatively, you could also check what I do through my social media sites, which you find in the description of this video. If not, I at least thank you for the few moments of your time this video took. So, hope to see you next video.